Hello, welcome to my part of this Ask the Expert session. So I will present you some few information, and then I will just start the hands-on coding. So please don't be afraid that I will show many slides, just a few slides, and I will start the hands-on coding then. So basically what I will do here, some examples, and also at the end I will just handle a few things what will be fixed in Service Pack 2 on top of AEM 6 and what's upcoming in the new feature of AEM 6.1. Okay, so perhaps if you're not too known with the Sightly framework, then it's basically new since AEM 6. Basically, since the beginning onwards, it was already the idea to open source it, and basically since the conference of Adept 2 in September 2014, it has been given to the Sling. And if you follow that issue that I have been showing there, the 3939 issue of Sling, then basically you can follow the whole process, how the code was being open sourced, and basically you can now see the whole implementation. So just a quick note: whenever you start development on AEM 6, make sure you install Service Pack 1. Many performance fixes have been made in there. Also, if you use the open source tool for development brackets, there's also a Sightly plugin available for that, and at the moment version 0012 is the most up-to-date one, so make sure you update that one. I will also show that in my session, but just a few notes up front. So okay, let's start to do some hands-on coding. Basically what I want to show you is the example where you have selected the path to a certain page in AEM, and you want to show basically more information of that page. That's a very common use case. I want to show you some examples how you can do that with some real AEM source coding. So okay, let me switch over to my environment here. So just to begin with, I have set up a Maven project here. And of course I'm running AEM 6 Service Pack 1. And let me first deploy this simple project to my AEM instance. And if I now switch over to my browser here, websites, then when all is well, I can make a new project here or a new page, Ask the Experts. And of course this shows all the Maven project that you can see here will be made available after this session for you. So let's do a simple page here, demo, Ask the Experts. Here we go. And when I open up this page here, see the sidekick appearing and a simple parser system here. So very simple content page, nothing really special with that. So let me introduce you to some other development tools that are available. So the brackets tool. So I'll open up the brackets here. Then if you go to the extension manager here, then if I go to install, then I have here AEM brackets extension installed, and that's basically now 0012. So what is that doing? So it basically will give you an extra option in the menu called AEM here, and that's basically you can connect your tool to your running AEM instance. So I've got here my server URL, admin, just default, click OK. And now basically I can make simple changes here, and those will be synced automatically to my running AEM instance without having to redeploy the whole project. So just to prove that, if I make a change here to say hello from the demo, and let's say we print out also the name of the page, so current page dot name, and let's do a BR. Okay, so I save now, I go back to my AEM instance, I refresh, and you see basically hello from the demo. So no need to redeploy. Still, if you feel more comfortable doing that, that's also fine. If I would go to the same page here, you see, of course, the same modification being here, but I say hello from the demo, change made in Eclipse. Click save here, but now I have to, of course, redeploy here. So it will take a bit longer, but still the result is the same. So you see here this change now being made. So it's up to you. I mean, yeah, it's like you have now more options that you can use. So in certain cases you would use one because you want to maybe start from the beginning, and the other one you want to make maybe a small modification, so that's also easier. Okay, so the example was that if we go here to page properties and I go into advanced site structure, and then for example I've chosen here the sign up page. So let's say the sign up page is pointing to a page something like here, let's say support. Click OK. Now I want to basically show this in a link in the header of my page with some more information of this page. Click OK. Okay, first I'm going to find out where that value has been saved. So I'm going to go into my COXD Lite, go to my page here, and my page was this one, JSON content, and we see here CQ sign up page. Okay, so let's copy up this value. So I'm going to start with, of course, removing this part, and I'm going to say div if we have a value, so that would be properties 600 page, then I'm going to show a link here, and the link is a href properties.html, and then we say something like sign up page. So what I'm doing here, I'm going to validate whether this value is specified. If it is specified, I'm going to show an href with sign up page. Save this and refresh my page here. You see sign up page here. So the basic functionality is working, but now of course I don't want to hard code the sign up page, but I want to have more information coming from that page. Okay, so the first sample that I will use is having a Java class that is extending the use API. So I'm going back to my Eclipse environment here, and what I have here is a page title WCM use. As you can see here, extend WCM use, and that basically forces you to override a method called activate. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to get the value of CQ sign up page via get properties, and then via get page manager I'm going to get the page and return that in here. And of course from that object here I can get the name, the title, etc. So the advantage of extending WCM used is that immediately you have access to all the existing objects on the page. So if you do get and then autocomplete, then you basically have access to all the objects that you are used to, like with page properties, request, resource, all the objects that are available, and it's quite easy then. Okay, so save this, and the way to use this in here is I'm going to use the use API for that, data slide use, and now it immediately sees the Java objects that are extending the use API. So you see automatically this object here. So I'm going to select that, and if you don't specify a name for your use API, then it will by default take the lowercase value of the Java object. So in this case, page title WCM use. Just to make it a bit shorter, I will just say page info. So this basically will instantiate this Java object and then make it available for you to use as page info. So in here, what I'm going to do is to say page info dot page dot title. So just to explain it a little bit, so better for readability. So page info is pointing to this page info here, and then the page is basically pointing to the page object that I'm returning in here. So from the component, this method is being called getPage, and that will return the page object. And then of course inside the page object you have all the default functionalities around a content page, or in this case the title of the page. Okay, I'm just going to save my change here and see indeed if this works. So let me do another change here to say WCM use colon, and then this is it. So switch back to my browser, refresh, and you see now indeed WCM use is going to get the page title here. So that's one way to do it. So another way we can do it is to use a sightly JavaScript object. So also via the use APIs you have a possibility to not use a Java object but a JavaScript object. So let me show you that. So I've prepared already here a page info.js, and with this notation, so it's just a very basic function, and in here you see basically two calls. So I'm going to get the page path via properties.get, and then again the same name, the CQ colon signup page, and the page manager, I'm going to get the page and returning the page as the page. So as you can see here, I still have access in the API to all the objects like get page manager, the resource, the current page, etc. So I've made a reference here. Here you basically can see the URL of all the context objects that you have access to. So that's page info here. So let's see how we can use that. Going to go back now to my components, and here you have the data slide use page info. So instead of using the Java class, I'm now using the JavaScript. So page info.js, save that, and basically I don't have to change anything now in here. So the page info still applies to the use API. The page is being returned from that function, and the all that information is still the same. So the title is still available from the page object. So I will make the change here to say JavaScript, save, go back to my Chrome and refresh. and you see JavaScript, and now it has the same result support. Okay, so that is option number 2. Option number 3 is using Sling Models. So therefore I have prepared another Java class here called page title Sling Models. And with Sling Models it makes it basically easier to make an object to be an adaptable object without having to write lots of code as you had to do in other versions. So by default Sling Models is included in AEM 6. If you want to use it in 5.6.1 or 5.5 even, you can just install it as an extra add-on. So basically in here what you can see is I'm making it adaptable from a Sling servlet request. And then I'm going to inject the page path as an argument. I'm going to get the page manager from the bindings. And I'm going to return the page again. And basically now we have only one line of code. The page manager get page returns the page. So a few things here. So the add inject basically notifies Sling Models that this will be injected either by an argument or via bindings. And the post construct annotation is going to execute this method after all the objects have been injected and the Java class has been instantiated for use. Okay, so let's try and use that in our component. So I'm going to copy paste the package name here to make sure I don't make any mistakes. I'm going to use brackets again for that to make that change. So data slide use again. So let me just put this onto a new line. Then I'm going to use a slightly other notation, because if you want to pass in arguments you have to use a different notation. Dot here. So the name of the class is this, and now I can basically use the add sign to pass in arguments. So it was page path equals, and then we do properties CQ sign of page. Okay. Ending here with accolade. So just want to make sure that I spelled it right. Page path uppercase P, and here you have the page path. Okay. And basically again this stays the same, so page info still applies to the use API. Page is now being returned from the Sling Models example, and the title is still the same. So I'm going to change this here to Sling Models, save my change, refresh my browser, and you see now Sling Models here. So just small tip here. So what you also can do just to avoid the constant repeating of this object is to say I'm going to save the result into sign up page, and going to copy this and pass in the value here and pass in the value there. Okay, so let's refresh to make sure that still works. And as you can see, it still works. So that's a nice and easy way just to basically make a var available with this name, and that's based on the outcome of this expression here. So that that's at least is a way to avoid repeating multiple times the same value over and over. And basically this is a way for Sling Models how to use that. And as I said before, like all this source code will be handed over after this session to you. for use. So we have basically now had 3 options. So WCM use, the .js option, so the page info.js, and the Sling Models. So I want to show you number 4. That's basically the Sling only option. So therefore I'm going to remove the data slide use notation here. And first I'm going to show you a component that I prepared, the page info component, as you can see here. And the page info component has this as the rendition, so properties JCR title, and then the name of the page, resource page.name. And now I'm going to use the path together with this component to render this inside the href. So content here, and I'm going to say here data slide resource. Now my path is sign up page, and now I'm going to specify the options. I'm going to begin with append path equals JShare content, and specifying here the resource type of my component, and that is then equals to my project components page info. And everything now inside this anchor tag will be removed, just to prove you that. So I will say this will be removed, and I will then say in here Sling column. Okay, so let's re-render that to see if that indeed is working. And as you can see now here we have Sling and support, and then basically the name of the page. So just to re-emphasize on that, how that exactly is then working, if I go to the content page here, so the path is pointing to the /content page, and then I'm going to append JShare content after it, and at JShare content I then have access to all the objects of that particular page, so the JShare title in here, and then of course I can also use objects like resource page to get the name of the page. So that is basically also a way to use Sling only to render all these kind of things, so that basically completely avoids you using extra source code for making this happen. Okay, so this was like the first few samples that I wanted to show you. So let's go back to the slides. So that's basically the page title example, and here I have prepared the slides around how we did it. So option 1 was the WCM use, so using the a Java object that extends WCM use, and then you can use get properties, get page manager, etc. Other option was this use a Sling model, so we had to pass in the sign up page here after the add sign, and then we use the add post construct basically to resolve the page. The other option we used to have the page info.js included, and in the JavaScript API we still have access to all available objects on the page, like the properties and page manager. And the fourth one was using Sling only to basically use a component to render the right content for your page without having to write any extra code. Okay, so that was my first example. Second example I want to show you is how to use a counter in a data slide list and how you can use a API for that. So I will just first show you the use case and then show you a little bit of source coding, how you can do that. Okay, going back to my brackets here. So I'll just remove this as a whole. And let's say we have a list here. And the list consists out of the current page and then list children. So all the sub pages of the current page. And then we say here div. We have item list. And then we do index. And then we say the title of the page. Okay. So let's show this first to see if this works. So of course, initially it won't show anything because we don't have any sub pages yet. So let's create 3 sub pages under this page. So sub page 1, sub page 2, sub page 3. Okay, so let's refresh the page here. Okay, so you see now the 3 pages. Now the issue here is that the index starts with 0 and a normal end user would expect 1 here. So we want to basically add 1 on top of the index and then show that. So let's see how that we can use that. So we go back to brackets here. And therefore I've prepared this API, the counter.js. And the counter.js basically shows you how to pass in an argument to this API and then basically return a new value. So in this case, I'm using the current index variable, and that is pointing to an argument that's passed in called index. So via this notation, you can refer to arguments being passed in from the component. Then I'm going to log the current index, and then I'm going to return the value, and then we can reference that by incremented index. Okay, so let's use that. We don't have to switch. Go back to my page here. Okay, so let's use the data slide use API again. And then we have the notation to pass in an argument. So we point to counter.js and we say index equals item list.index. And we say the use API is being called counter. And let's return this to the new line to make it easier to read. Okay, so instead of using the item list index here, we're going to use counter, and then what was the name again? Incremented index. Okay, incremented index. Here, going to save here, and now basically counter is referring to the use API's counter here, and incremented index is being returned from that API. Save here, so I'm going to return this to a new line. Okay, refresh my page, and you see now 1, 2, 3. So that's basically a way to pass in arguments to that use API also. Other thing you saw in my counter.js that I'm doing a log.info current index, and then I'm going to log the current index. So let's see where it ends up. So I can go to my log file, which is somewhere here. So I'm going to do myself an error log. Now when I do a refresh of my page, then I'm expecting some log info. As you can see here now, we have basically now the log statements current index 0, 1, 2. So it's basically a way to log from your use APIs also. So on that note, some people ask me like how to debug your source code in, for example, Sling Models or in your use API. So let me show you that, also how to configure your environment for that. So let me then quickly call my Java object from my brackets environment. So let's say we still have the other use object here. So we use slide and use. Okay, we have this Java object, and that will be enough. So I'm going to show you how you basically can debug some Java code in this use API. So therefore I'm going to stop my running AEM instance. And once it's stopped, I'm going to start it again using the Java -jar command, and then using the option -debug, and then I'm specifying a port. So by default I am always using 30303. So let's do that. I'm going to start my AEM environment here, and then for my Eclipse environment I'm going to configure here a debug configuration, and that points to a remote Java application. As you can see, my AEM has been started. So remote Java application, so let's say AEM local, this is the bundle, and my port is 303. I'm going to hit apply and hit debug. And of course I'm going to save the change here. Now when I refresh my page, then you see my Eclipse is being switched, and now basically it will ask me whether I want to open my perspective to debug the code, and I say yes here. It now basically allows me to see what's happening here. So I'm going to step through the code here, and you see the page path is now containing this value. So that's basically how simple it is to debug code inside AEM, inside your bundle. So I'm going to let this go, and then it's all fine. So just remember, I'm going to stop my AEM instance here, I'm just going to run in normal mode. Just remember here that you have to start it with the -debug option and then the port, and that's it. So I'm going to remove this and start my AEM in normal mode. So let's see until it has been really stopped. Okay. So going back to my slides here, so that was basically the counter, as you have seen. So the JavaScript API that we have used, and basically also some extra demos around how to debug your code. So sometimes people ask me around debugging in the JS API. So basically the log statements are basically the only option that you have at the moment. Engineering is heavily focused on the JS API for the next developments. So other thing that people have been asking a lot is if you have the JS and CSS files in your project, how you can expose them in your site lib pages. So I'm going to show you that. So in my project here, I've prepared a simple client libs, and this client lib is containing just one JS file, and the JS file you can see here, hello from the client lib, so nothing really special. The name is my project, and I'm referring as here my project.js, so all basic functionality. So what you have to do in the head or anywhere else you want to refer it, you have to use this use API. So the use API that's pointing to this default object. So libs, granite, site lead, templates, client lib HTML. And then basically via the call method, you can execute three ways. You can use either only the JS, only the CSS, or CSS and JS files. So in this case, I'm only going to do the JS file here. And we want to use the data slide unwrap here because we don't want to have the meta tag around it. So that's that. So let me reinstall that. Other thing I want to say to you, if you have multiple that you want to include, what you can do is just specify a comma separated value to say my project.all, comma, let's say test A. So you can just specify a comma separated value, and then they will all be included. You don't have to repeat the statement over and over. Save this. So okay, I'm going to remove the content finder here from my URL and opening up the page source. And now you basically see here this JS file being exposed. If I open this, then indeed you see only the statement hello from the client lib. Okay, so that was that. So let's go back to the slides. So indeed the same notation that you have seen in my head.html. So what is being fixed in Service Pack 2? So we're basically currently on Service Pack 1, and quite soon Service Pack 2 will follow. So at the moment, multi-level inheritance doesn't work for the JS API. So it only works when you inheriting one level down. If you inheriting multiple levels, then it doesn't work. So that has been fixed. Other fix has been made is around if you want to output an HTML attribute that has the value false. That didn't work, so that has been fixed. Also, other minor fixes have been made, but they were not really, let's say, worth to note them down here. Other thing is, what I want to point to you is new features in 6.1. So in 6.1 we'll have a new element called Sly, and that's basically to accommodate the situations where you have data slide unwraps that you can't avoid, and to make it more obvious for everyone that those elements in the HTML will not be outputted, then you can use the Sly element. So basically you can use a Sly element, you can remove your data slide unwrap, and that basically then makes everyone aware that the Sly will not be outputted into the HTML. So that makes it a bit more readable for people instead of using the data slide unwrap many times. Other feature is the data slide repeat. That is to accommodate the situation where you have a data slide list, but you don't want to output the container element. So as you can see here, before it was like the data slide list with the data slide unwrap, and then you have an item inside the container element that has been repeated multiple times. In 6.1 you can then use data slide repeat only on the element, and then the element gets repeated multiple times. So that's a nice enhancement to make the code more readable and avoid using the data slide unwrap many times. So here are basically a list of useful resources, some things you have seen in this session, and this also gives you a complete overview what you can use overall. So that was basically the end of my session. I hope you find it really useful for you, and always feel free to reach out to me. Okay, bye bye.